So what happens if you do not find your favorite font inside of those web-safe fonts? What are you going to do? You have a few different options. One of the biggest ones you have is by just integrating your own custom font. And even with that, you have a few different options. You could embed a font in like a Google font. The problem with that is if there are any issues with Google API, your font won't show up and it'll change the entire look and feel of your site. So the implementation I'm going to show you is how to integrate fonts and actually embed them inside of your application. So this is going to take a little bit longer than say what we did with the web safe fonts, because you have a few different steps you have to go through. First thing you do is go to a web browser, and you could go to any font site that you want. I'm going to go to dafont.com, and you can see all different kinds of really cool fonts that they have, and pick any of them out for what we're doing here. I'm going to go, I found a cool one I liked. Let's see if this brings it up. Yeah, there we go. So there's a Hunger Games font. And to access it, just click on that link and it'll take you right here. And so you can, all you have to do is download it, and it'll start a download for a zip file. Open it up on your system. It opened up in a different window, and unzip it, and it will show you a hungergames.ttf if that's one you did, or if you did another one, that's fine. It doesn't change for the tutorial at all. So for this one, what I want to do now is come and create a new repository, or I'm sorry, new directory inside of assets. So I'm going to say fonts and open up this fonts folder, and I'm going to drag Hunger Games into here. So I'm just going to take this and copy and paste it, and there we go. Okay, and a lot of times I don't like this empty space here, so I'm going to change this and put an underscore. I just, in general, I don't like empty spaces with any type of files I'm bringing in. So I changed that, and now the next thing to do is in the code. One, you can come back here and you can see we have access to this font right here. And the next thing I want to do is open up application.rb. And you can find this, you can see the path. This is inside the config directory. So you can also go and access it down in config right here, and you'll see the file. Down on the bottom, just add a couple lines. The first one is config.assets.enabled, and set this to true. And the next line, you're going to do config.assets.paths and double angle brackets. If you're familiar with Ruby, you know that this means it's adding it to an array, which means that we're running config, and then on config we're accessing the assets, and inside assets first we're turning them on, and then here we're adding to the paths array, which means that this is going to be a new path because it wasn't built in. If you noticed, we had to add the fonts directory. It knew about images, it knows about JavaScripts, it knows about style sheets, it doesn't know about fonts, and so that's what we're doing here. So now we just type in rails.root to find the root path of the application, join, and then create a string here where we say app, assets, fonts. And so I want to just spend some time here so you can see exactly what's going on. What we're doing is we're taking this path, which is the root of the application, and we're appending /app/assets/fonts onto it and adding it to our paths array, so that when the application starts up, and that's why we put it in this application.rb file, when the application starts up, it's going to know with the asset path to also include this fonts directory. If we didn't leave that in, then it would bypass it and we'd wonder why our fonts weren't getting added. So that's all that means. Now here, in the very top of the file, we need to call this font family so we can have access to it. So I'm going to say @ symbol, font face, and then in curly brackets, I'm going to say font family, and say Hunger Games. That's the name of it. Hunger Games, and semicolon. After that, we want to add a source. So for the source, this is going to be the URL, and for the URL, that's going to be in a string, and we know this is inside of assets. It already knows about fonts, so we don't have to say fonts. It's just going to be compiled into assets, but we need this name. So we're going to say Hunger Games, Hunger_games. Okay, and then semicolon, and I believe that, yeah, that all looks correct. Okay, so now let's actually call it inside of one of the fonts. So we're going to only use it in our headings. So I'm going to say here font family instead of Arial Black gadget. I'm going to get rid of gadget, and here I'm going to say Hunger Games, comma, and there we go. Okay, so I'm going to restart the server. We need to restart it because we made changes to application.rb file. A good rule of thumb is anytime you make any changes to anything inside of the config directory, or really any directory outside of the app directory, that's when you want to restart the server. So things like database migrations, that's outside the app folder, so you need to restart the server. Something in config, like we just did in the application file, that one also is outside, so we want to restart the Rails server. Okay, so we restarted this, and if we did everything right, the home page should show us a new special Hunger Games font. So hit refresh, and there you go, it all worked. I'm actually happy about that because I didn't test that out as much as I usually like to test stuff out. Okay, so that worked. Now, say I want to actually change this up and say font size, that we can also put things in here like 3.5M. Come here, and that changes. So this is how you can integrate custom fonts into your application, and this covers both being able to do custom ones, such as ones we downloaded, added to the Rails asset pipeline, along with ones that are web safe, like the ones we did for all of our p tags. So that should really let you do and teach you how to do everything you need to do from a font perspective.